Wall Street trying to hold on to these records with energy in Venezuela front and center. The Trump administration briefed Congress on its actions in Venezuela as we await the president to sit down with oil executives on Friday. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Taylor Riggs, along with my co-host Brian Brenberg, Jackie DeAngelis, and a very special someone on my left, Dagan McDowell. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
I'm glad I got to put some lipstick on before the show started. It was close.
Right thing to do on your birthday.
It was close.
We got ya. Mascara's next.
Yeah.
With us for the hour, Michael Lee, strategy founder. Michael Lee, great to have you. Cheers for everyone. President Trump announcing that Venezuela will transfer about 30 to 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil to the United States. Oil that will be sold at market prices, with the proceeds controlled by the White House. Energy stocks climbing on expectations that American firms will be involved in reviving Venezuela's long-neglected oil sector. So, is this a bullish moment for markets? Michael Lee, I want to separate a few things. We have markets, we have fundamentals, we have earnings season, we have CES, we have NVIDIA, we have Venezuela and oil. How are you thinking, if anything, those are both bullish for the market this year? Is there geopolitical risk in the markets this year? How are you sort of sorting through all of these?
So I think this Venezuela story, I don't know how tied it is to the day-to-day trading in the market, right? In fact, I don't think it is. And I know Dagan's been talking about this number of proven oil reserves, which is neither proven, probably not there. I don't think it really matters because they have 1 million barrels a day coming into the open market. Okay, it's going to take anywhere from $10 to $100 billion to get that, to double that, right? And you're talking about a global market, which is over 100 million barrels a day. So what it is, it's long-term security, power, prosperity for the United States of America. And you're seeing a foreign policy shift where the goal is not to dominate the Middle East from the United States, it's to dominate the hemisphere. And so you have de-risked this hemisphere and you have weakened some of our foes in terms of Russia, China, Cuba, by taking Venezuela as a kind of state sponsor of terrorism, of drugs, of whatever, off the map. And then that being said, with what's going on with the markets, like you generally get scared when every strategist on the street has a very bullish consensus for the year. I think they're wrong. I don't think they're bullish enough. I think growth is going to be way better than they predict. I think rates are going to go lower than they predict. I think earnings are going to be better than they predict. And all this confluence of things is happening. And like you have a NVIDIA saying like we're guiding towards $500 billion in annual revenue, where the street's at 325, 350 billion where you are, and maybe they'll be capacity constrained and not hit it. But there's this AI thing going on in the background that's going to give such a boost to GDP. And we're starting to see the effects of the immediate depreciation, the deregulation, the energy costs, at least, under wraps for now. And maybe Venezuela, you can make the argument, puts a cap on the price of oil in the near term. But look, like things are good. We need an exogenous event to take the market off course. This is going to be an unbelievable year for stocks.
Jackie, I want to come to you. 9 out of 10, a report I read said these geopolitical events don't impact markets unless it impacts inflation, long-term growth rates, or interest rates. That being said, when it comes to the oil markets, one note I read this morning said, all this oil we're getting from Venezuela, let's replenish our strategic petroleum reserve, which by my estimates here are still about, where are we, 250 million barrels below the peak that we had back in 2020. We're currently just over about 400 million. The peak really was 700 million barrels. So how do you think about all of this and just sort of maybe the geopolitical risk that maybe is subsided?
I'm looking at crude oil prices at 56 and change, and I'm thinking to myself, the president isn't dumb when it comes to oil. I think he's probably waiting for an even lower price than that to be able to replenish the SPR. I'm pretty sure that he hasn't forgotten about it. But I thought the same thing with this 30 to 50 million barrels, and he's going to control the proceeds. So what exactly is going to happen with that? But I'm also thinking about what happens in Venezuela and the sort of incentive for oil companies to go go over there. The administration, Chris Wright, is going to be meeting with some of the big CEOs to talk strategy. Trump has said that he's thinking about subsidizing these companies to go over there. And as soon as I hear that word, I really don't love it. I understand the risk that they would bear to be able to do it. And you think about if he's not president, or J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or somebody in the party, what will somebody else do on the other side if they're in power to be able to sort of turn this around and make it not attractive for companies to be there? But whenever I hear subsidy, it really starts to upset me. My only thought is that he's thinking with some sort of subsidy, it goes through Congress, and therefore it's harder to turn it around later to be able to make it less attractive for those companies to be there.
Yeah. Brian, before, I just want to bring you some headlines because we're hearing from Carolyn Levitt, we're hearing from the White House. What we are hearing is they've already begun marketing the oil. All proceeds will first settle in U.S. accounts at globally recognized banks, and the funds will be dispersed at U.S. discretion, reiterating there is a long-term plan. Decisions, though, will continue to be dictated by the U.S. Your thoughts?
Well, okay, so a couple things there. We seized sanctioned oil, right? And we're interdicting sanctioned ships. I think that's awesome. For way too long, the U.S. has said one thing about sanctions on bad actors and hasn't done anything. And now we're doing things, and we've got a deterrent effect. So I love that. I don't know what their long-term plan is. I don't know if they have a long-term plan. They're probably figuring it out right now. Number two, so I'm interested in the subsidy question because I was thinking about this, and I'm with you. I don't think you need to pay oil companies to go in and produce profitable oil. Just let them keep the revenue, right? That's what I'm thinking. Okay, but on the other hand, let me just throw this out there. Venezuelan oil is obviously a national security issue, right? Because you've got your biggest adversaries plugging in right there, right? You've got China plugged in there, Russia's plugged in there. So at what point do you view our ability to call the shots on Venezuelan oil actually a foreign policy play and not an economic play? That's what, because here's what.
But couldn't you say that about Intel?
Let me just say my last point, because and you made the point. Globally speaking, Venezuelan oil is not that important. It's a drop in the bucket, globally speaking. So is it really about the oil, or is it about what we can do with that oil to our adversaries? I leave it.
Correct.
I think it's the latter.
And Dagan, you weigh in as well.
So then it makes you think maybe, but I want to hear what Dagan says, because she's with me normally on the subsidy thing. So what do you say, Dagan? It's your birthday.
Well, I listened to Chris Wright this morning. He already spoke at the Goldman Sachs conference. And it is very clear that the conversations are already happening with the heads of these oil companies and with partners, if you can call them partners, in Venezuela, that this was happening instantaneously. And we are incredibly lucky to have Chris Wright as the Energy Secretary, along with Doug Burgum. And I encourage everybody to listen to this discussion, because it's not just about Venezuela, it's about the state of what's happened in the last year in our energy sector. But the man is an absolute genius, and he's an energy nerd, which I appreciate. He's also an environmentalist and an avid outdoorsman. And his vision for our future and the world's future is really uplifting. And people in politics, you never get to say that about them. So here is the oil, the 30 to 50 million barrels of oil that we're talking about. This is already in storage. It's already out of the ground. It's offshore, onshore. And the idea that Chris Wright lays out about the U.S. control. So the sales will be done by the U.S. government of the oil. The money is deposited in accounts of the U.S. government. And then the money would eventually flow back to Venezuela. We will control the oil sales, and that gives us leverage to drive change in Venezuela. said a different way. He was asked about the compensation of oil companies for participation in Venezuela and then getting concurrent returns. And he said, there's an active dialogue on conditions to make capital flow back to Venezuela to benefit everyone. That's the US, Venezuela, and the oil companies who were there before the collapse under Hugo Chavez. And, well, their assets were essentially seized under Hugo Chavez. There's an active dialogue happening. We're going to require cooperation and put pressure on Venezuela. If we control the flow of oil and the sale of that oil and the flow of cash from those sales, we have large leverage. But without large leverage, you don't get change. And he's speaking about Venezuela. It is completely unclear at this point what kind of financial incentives would be given to the oil companies. It is not clear. And he was asked about that specifically. But
you brought the word change. Like, he's talking about political behavioral change as one of the main
in Venezuela.
goals. Yes.
But they're not talking about, they're just talking about feeding he didn't say this, but feeding the people. And he also talked about electricity. There's a 30% decline in the electricity production down there. That is a huge issue here because we have spent ghastly amounts of money on electricity. Prices have gone up, and we haven't actually produced any more electricity in this country. So that was kind of one of the main focuses. But in terms of oil sales, and you brought up what are proclaimed as the proven reserves in Venezuela, and how I was kind of a stickler about correcting that figure because it was inflated by Hugo Chavez. I was a stickler about that because I have an issue with people regurgitating what they say are facts over and over again to the American people, and they're not facts. So that's why I fixated on that. And in terms of what, there are 800 to 900,000 barrels per day that are being produced by Venezuela. 3.7 million barrels per day was the peak. It was about 3 million before Hugo Chavez took over. The very fact, as Chris Wright said, that Venezuela is still able to produce up to 900,000 barrels a day is kind of astonishing given the 25 years of mismanagement. He's looking at several 100,000 barrels per day of additional production in the short and medium term if conditions are there for small capital deployments, spare parts, and people, for example. He said, but it's going to take tens of billions of dollars and significant time to just get back to the historical production figures, which would be in the 3 million barrels per day range. But don't lecture me about correcting incorrect information, Mike. You can stick that where the sun doesn't shine.
No, I just wanted to say, there's obviously inflated numbers about how much oil they have, I don't know, weapons of mass destruction. But it's their capacity in terms of barrels per day. It's it doesn't matter if their proven reserves are X amount or Y amount. If PDVSA was hoping to get to 5 million barrels a day in terms of production back in 2012 when they were at that 3.7 peak, it's not going to make a huge dent.
No. 3.7 was prior to Hugo Chavez. 3.7 million. They were never anywhere near 3.7 in the entire socialist reign. So I don't mean to digress, but I brought that number up for a reason, and it's because I'm at 25. I've been in journalism for 30 some odd years. That's why.
They thought they were going to get to their goal in 2012 by 2020 was to get to 5 million barrels a day.
Well, they were lying. I mean, they
obviously
fired.
hasn't happened.
I know the whole history. They
ceiling.
fired all of the workers. They fired thousands of workers. That was Hugo Chavez, and they destroyed their entire oil industry. And anybody watching it knew what was going on. And that's why Venezuelans work for every oil company on the planet, because they fled.
Except Venezuelan oil companies.
But they're never going to get to 10 or 20 million barrels a day. And if they do, it's 30 years from now. Because if you want to go from a million to 2 million, there's people out there saying it's going to cost $100 billion of capital investment to get there. So it's never going to make a huge dent in the global oil scale.
3 million barrels a day will make a dent. And that's what Chris Wright was talking about.
Good conversation. We'll continue it. I do want to make another hard right turn. Take a look at Deckers Outdoors, you guys. They're down about 3.25%. But this is interesting. Piper Sandler downgrades the stock to an underweight, lowers the price target to 85 from 100. Baird cuts its neutral rating and goes down to 125, a price target. Do you guys prefer the Hoka brand or the UGG brand or neither? Pop quiz.
They own
Hokas.
Hoka?
I think so, yeah.
Focus.
Hokas?
Wait,
Okay.
did you say Uggs? They don't make
Uggs?
tennis shoes, do they?
No.
Uggs
They
aren't
make those.
tennis shoes.
They make those interesting boots.
Boots with the fur.
fur-lined
An
boots.
apple bottom jean. Just kidding. So look, the brokerage are citing big discounts in the Hoka and the UGG brands, saying that it's a concerning signal that they have to discount so much, citing an unhealthy consumer
Oh.
for
I've never
that
seen Hokas on
brand.
sale.
Okay.
But I'll be
well,
looking.
Kind of a premium brand for like real runners, right? I'm not a real runner.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Oh, really? See, I'm behind the times.
we want to hear
They
from you.
wear out really, really quickly.
No kidding.
Yes.
They're very poofy on the bottom.
See, that's why I don't love the poofs, but I'm like the old school, like on fan. Okay.